Welcome to the International Cannabis Business Conference, Barcelona, en 2022. ¿Sí? Yo hablo español suficiente para fumar y comer. We thank you guys all so very much for coming out. We also like to thank our sponsors, Grow Glide and Bhang. We have a great day lined up. It's going to be fantastic. We also have, I think we have translators available if you need it, but you guys probably speak 8 different languages. You know, I'm an American, I speak like 1.5 languages, uno y media idiomas. I asked a guy once, I was trying to ask him how many languages he spoke, and I was like, ¿Cuántos lenguas tiene? He's like, how many tongues do I have? I was like, no. All right, that joke's probably better in French. Okay. It's getting there. It's getting there. Give me 2 more days. We are just about to start. Our keynote speaker, we are very fortunate and honored and lucky to have her. She is a badass. I don't know how you say that in different languages, but she's a wonderful person. And she just told me that she has been invited to speak at the United Nations on May 5th because they're having a cannabis and hemp day. Huh? How about that? That's not bad. You make some noise for that. That's exciting. Listen, cannabis is coming a long way, right? It used to be a felony, and now it's an essential service, at least in America. I don't know how they're doing it out here, but they're coming around. And you know, in Barcelona, it's just something to do on a Tuesday. But I'll just keep going. She's the CEO and the president of Bhang Incorporated, and she's here for us right now. Let's hear it for Jamie Pearson.
Okay, that's better. Normally I have a podium, but this is gonna work, and I know you guys don't mind. Good morning. Oh, and now Randall, how are we doing on the PowerPoint? There we go. What I'm going to talk about today are the top 10 things investors, operators, and consumers should anticipate as legalization spreads across Europe. And the reason I think this is an important conversation for us to have right now is that on both continents, North America, well, in all continents actually, South America also, and Europe, legalization is spreading like wildfire. I had a dinner last night, and there was a consultant, Nathan, he's in the audience, he said 55 countries right now are looking at some form of legalization. And there's some suspicion that most of Europe will probably follow the Canadian regulations when it goes rec. And that's okay. What I'm going to talk about really handles both Canada and the US. It's a historic time. It's been a bumpy ride. And one of the things that we have to rely on is history. So we had prohibition in the United States in alcohol. And it's a really interesting idea when you look at the fact that I took this right off the History Channel, and this is where within minutes of Utah, so Utah was the last state that had to ratify get rid of the prohibition of alcohol. And within minutes, you can see liquor was flowing, delivery trucks were filled with beer, and everybody was ready to go. So I'm always asking myself, how is that possible that within minutes of the end of legalization, everybody was ready to start drinking alcohol again? Well, we're doing that now in cannabis because we've got these medical programs, we've got decriminalization, we've got medical marijuana in lots of places. So the reality here is that we're ready for this to happen again. This is really clunky. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, so I want to tell you that this story really begins with roots and suits. Roots are the people that risked life and liberty to keep cannabis alive during Prohibition worldwide. We call them roots. How many of you in here consider yourself a root? I got a few of you. Thank you. And then we have the suits. I consider myself a suit. I was a real estate investor for 25 years. I didn't jump into the industry until it was safe and legal. And a lot of the suits came in now that we have a bona fide industry, and they're here to make money. My dad's a root. My dad's been growing cannabis for 56 years, since 1966, I think is the math. I'm 52. So I've literally grown up in, and that's my daughter's hand, by the way, on one of my dad's plants. We've all grown up. In my family, harvest is a thing. We have a harvest party. Everybody sits and trims weed. When I was a kid, I had a choice. Do I pick up dog poop or do I trim weed? For me, it was easy. I picked up dog poop because I really wasn't a fan of cannabis, and I hate trimming, and I still hate trimming. For all you roots out there, or maybe some of you suits, you know what I'm talking about. So I had a root background, but I still don't consider myself a root because I didn't choose to go into cannabis until it was legal and safe. And plus I had all of the real estate holdings and things that I didn't want to put at risk. The other thing I had going for me, I think I'm just going to give up the iPad and just wing it here. DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill. How many of you know Cypress Hill? A lot of you. He's my first cousin on my mom's side. So Muggs and I invested in real estate together. And when it was time for Cypress to do a weed deal, he came to me and said, would you help us find a weed deal? Because he had experience with me doing business, because I'm a suit. He was more comfortable having me go out and make sure that the band had a good deal. So in 2015, I found Bhang. Cypress did a deal with Bhang, and I've been with Bhang ever since, so it's about 7 years. We went public in 2019. I've been the CEO since December of 2019. I was promoted into that position. We are now in 7 US states, soon to be 9, because we're about to open a couple more states. We just signed an 11-state deal with Trulieve, which is one of the world's most profitable cannabis company in the world. And we're the number 1, number 2, and number 6 chocolate in Canada. And we're looking for a European partner, and you'll see all around this, I put flyers that have a QR code on it. If you're interested in having an American brand, and I understand it's a long game, we're not ready yet in a lot of places in Europe, but you've got to start planning ahead, so that's what I'm doing. I'm looking for European partners. So go ahead and fill out that QR code. Now I'm going to see if you guys are awake. I have a gift. It is this is shameless promotion. It's a Bhang football. Is there anybody in the audience that wants it? There you go. I've got another one. Now, you also see around the crowd that I have a giveaway. That sweatsuit that's shown right there, I have here. I have a t-shirt, I have some more footballs, and I have a Bhang chocolate bar. So any of you that would like any of those things, I've got a QR code, and this is an experiment. I want to see if this works from the stage. Can you scan that QR code and fill out your entry form for my contest? And I'm going to get to why I'm doing this later. Is it working? Yay, it works. Love it. Oh, who else still needs the QR code? We'll go back. Anybody else? And they're all over the auditorium, so you guys can scan later. This is the current map of the United States of legalization. So 18 states are adult use. 31 are medical, 7 are CBD only, 2 have decriminalized, and the 4 orange states are the weird ones that have actually gone so far as to outlaw cannabis. So it will take federal legalization to get those 4 states on board. Although I have seen that a couple of them have some ballot language coming up. I want you to pay particular attention to Idaho and Wyoming up there. Surrounded by Washington, Oregon, and Montana. The citizens of those states just have to cross a border. In Wyoming, when Montana went rec on January 1st of this year, 85% of the transactions in the southern part of Montana were Wyoming residents, because we have to track them. People want cannabis. This is clear. And legalization has been sweeping the United States since 1996. That's when California went medical. When I jumped into the industry in 2014, there were 4 rec states. In 2015, 4 more went rec, and that was the year that everyone considered the tipping point. What we're seeing in Europe is Malta went rec, Germany signaled it's going rec, and you're starting to see the same thing, but you have the benefit of this as your playbook. And I'm going to talk to you about the things that you need to know so that you can educate the people in your communities to not repeat the mistakes that the really swimming upstream hard row we had to hold. The one thing I'll tell you is when you have 46 states with some form of legalization, Clarence Thomas, our Supreme Court Justice, the most conservative Supreme Court Justice we have, this is his quote. This was in a dissenting opinion about cannabis, and he is basically saying, you can't have it both ways, federal government. You can't look the other way and let states have states' rights, and then when it comes to the feds, you get to do these cash grabs, you get to raid people, you get to take their money, you get to take their equipment. At some point, there's going to be a lawsuit that'll get it to the Supreme Court, or they'll pass safe banking, Congress will pass it, or there'll be some sort of a vote. But we are in the process of, we in the industry, of this balancing act of waiting for legalization, federal legalization. So here are some of the things that we have seen, I'm calling them expectations, things that you can expect are coming as we legalize cannabis. Number one, there's competing interests. So we have consumers and the authorities. People want it. The authorities are scared. Your governments are afraid, and medical people are afraid. Doctors don't learn about cannabis. So imagine in the US, 44 states in America wake up with some form of legal cannabinoid. We don't know anything about the cross indications of drugs, interactions. I mean, I can't say we don't know anything thanks to Ralph Mishalem and people in Israel and people in Canada. We're starting to learn more and more, but we have so much to learn about what cannabinoids can do. People want it, they are using it, they never stopped using it, and it's time for all of us to get the government and the medical professionals on board, because it's better for us, it's safer for us. Here's some more competing interests, the roots and the suits. The roots want a seat at the table, and they deserve a seat at the table. It's not necessarily that the suits don't want them, but there are a lot of assumptions people make. The roots assume that the suits are just doing cash grab, but I'm going to tell you, the suits that are in right now have left some cushy jobs. I know some people that left Pepsi, they left Constellation Brands, they left Kellogg's to jump into an industry that is not quite legal yet. So my guess is they're a little edgy, or they're cannabis fans, and they see this industry going somewhere, and they know that cannabis makes people feel better. So you have the suits jumping in, and they're a little edgy, and the roots deciding that, oh, they don't know anything about cannabis. We have to teach them everything. And then you have the suits assuming that everyone in cannabis is a bunch of stoners. They don't know what they're doing. We're going to have to teach them about KPIs, and we're going to have to teach them how to do business. But the reality is, I have a guy on my team that did 13 years in prison, and 11 years of that was in solitary confinement. He ran his cannabis business from solitary confinement. I'm not going to teach that guy much about running a business. He's got a lot to teach me, right? So we all have to stop making assumptions. And finally, federal, state, and local authorities have competing interests. Everybody wants that tax dollar, and everybody wants that glory. But none of them want to take the risk of doing something unpopular. And it's our job to educate them that this is popular. We want this. This is not unique to America. There's been a drug war across the globe, and it's not been a war on drugs, it's been a war on race. And let's be very clear. There is no difference, and this is statistically proven, and I will tell you, you can look it up. White people, black people, and brown people use cannabis at the same rate. But black and brown people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis use. There are 40,000 black and brown people sitting in prison in America. Those are the roots that have given their life and their liberty for all of us to be here with an industry. Social equity is a conversation that needs to be had. And the roots should have a seat at the table. And social equity is the right thing to do. It is a moral imperative. And what I would challenge all of you, and what we do at Bhang, is we give a portion of our profits every month to the Last Prisoner Project to get some of these people, all of them, out of prison. There should be nobody in prison for possession of a plant that grows in nature while we're out making millions of dollars. And so I'm saying to you, and I'm challenging each one of you, incorporate that into your business plan. Consumer demand is always grossly underestimated. And what happens then is the governmental authorities, you can count on this. They underestimate the demand, they don't give enough licenses, they want to dip their toe in the water, rather than saying, ooh, let's embrace this plant, everybody wants it. It's never gone away, everybody's still using it. I just had a talk with a gentleman out in the foyer, Cliff, who said, oh, South Africa's got a big market. Well, we all do. America has a big illicit market. Canada had a big illicit market. South American countries had big illicit markets. Europe's had a big illicit market. Cannabis never went away. And if they don't put a lot of licenses at every level of the supply chain, you're going to end up with bottlenecks. And what we've seen across the United States is the bottlenecks happen wherever there aren't enough licenses. And now I'm going to tell you how it works. You're going to have dispensaries. In some form or fashion, the recreational cannabis will get to the consumer. And then they're going to say, oh, MG, we didn't do this right, and they run out of product. It's not happened differently anywhere in the US. Every single state that went rec underestimated the amount of product they were going to need. And then the legislators go, oh, tax dollars, awesome. We're going to meet demand. And then they open up cultivation. And then cultivation explodes. And then what happens? We end up with a glut. So I'm thinking specifically about Canada. I'm thinking about Oregon. These places where there's a glut of supply now because cultivation exploded because they realized they didn't have enough cannabis to meet demand. And that's when the market speaks, because eventually the good operators operate, or the people that have deep pockets, and the operators that aren't so good don't make it. Takes about 3 years, depending on the government. It can take longer, minimum 3 years, you'll start to see the supply chain normalize. These are things that you can expect because they're going to underestimate the demand. And in Europe, I think the numbers I'm seeing come out in some of these trade publications, Prohibition Partners and Leafly, they are way underestimating the demand. I think you guys are going to be surprised at how big the European market's going to end up being. Expectation number 4. The bottlenecks will be local. This always happens. Because when we talk about the federal and state and local legislators, it won't be the European Union that's going to screw up cannabis. It's going to be the school board in Stuttgart or some little town that's going to go, not in my backyard. That's NIMBY. I didn't coin that, but we use that in cannabis in America a lot. The NIMBY effect, not in my backyard. So everybody's like, hang on a second, we want this, but why don't you do it and we'll watch and we'll see what happens. And this is where you guys come in. You have to teach the people at the local level that everybody wants this plant. It is safe. Nobody dies from it. We always see the media talking about, oh, in America, oh, Halloween candy. There's people giving the medicated candy to children. And I always laugh and usually go on record and say, a Bhang chocolate bar costs $20. Believe me, nobody's buying a $20 chocolate bar and forgetting and handing it to some child on a trick-or-treating expedition. Doesn't happen. And every year they're just peddling fear. We have to keep the media from peddling fear and start peddling solutions, and we have to stop really buying into it, and we have to start educating about things like when cannabis is legal, the age of onset goes up. So kids start waiting more and more. It's harder to get cannabis for a kid when it's legal. Kids don't buy beer in the middle school bathroom, but they can buy cannabis in the middle school bathroom. But in states where it's legal, it's really hard for them to get. Domestic violence goes down, drunk driving goes down, wellness goes up. Our communities at the local level need to embrace this, not just because there's a tax grab, but because it improves wellness in our communities. Fear is the most powerful force in the fight against prohibition. And our job is to fight the stigma. So the first 2 years I was in cannabis, I really didn't want people to know. I was still kind of worried, like, how is this going to impact my business, my real estate business? Now people say, well, what do you do? I say, I'm in cannabis, and then a discussion ensues. Be loud, be proud, be out. Let's fight this fear. There is a lot of ignorance about potency, about the endocannabinoid system, about technology, and about the industry in general. People are still talking about indica and sativa. People are thinking that 10 milligrams is enough. If you have a tolerance, 10 milligrams doesn't affect a lot of people. If you're using cannabis for a medical reason, to sleep, or for seizure disorder, or for cancer, for nausea, a 10 milligram dose isn't enough, and yet that's the dose that most municipalities and states recommend as the starting dose. The media has an aversion to facts, and boy, we know this in all areas of the world, but we need to educate and demand better from our media. Expect a time suck and expect a green tax. So everything's going to cost 10 times more and everything's going to take 10 times longer. Why? They will not fund the government offices with enough people, so when the application for those licenses comes open, they're going to have a stack of licenses. It's going to take forever to get them. Meanwhile, you're going to figure out that you need this particular spot for your retail shop, and you're going to pay rent for months and months and months while you're waiting for your license. Does any of this sound familiar to you? This is what happens. It costs 10 times more because everybody's on a learning curve. So you want to get a zoning consultant to come in and help you figure out your zoning. Well, guess what? The zoning consultant that knows cannabis may not know the rules where you live. So part of this is understand when you're planning and when you're making your business plan. Expect things to take longer. Expect things to be more expensive. We are not in business. We are in prohibition. A lot of companies start and fail because they underestimate what it's going to take and how long it's going to take. Lab testing inconsistencies, you can expect them. In the US and in Canada, there is very little regulation about how a standard lab is supposed to test cannabis. Some of them have different equipment, some of them calibrate differently, and what ends up happening is that you end up having different results, and it can really, lab testing has bankrupted companies because they've put a crop out, it didn't test right, they got to destroy it, throw it out. Usually it ends up on the illicit market. Each step in the supply chain is an opportunity to tax, and what happens is they say, we're gonna have you lab test, and we're gonna tax cultivation. Then we're gonna lab test, and we're gonna tax the extracted oil. Then we're gonna lab test, and we're gonna tax the manufactured product. Then we're gonna lab test the final product before it goes to the retail shop, and we're gonna tax it there too. Oh, and we're gonna tax distribution. So now what you have is, because of this lab testing situation, because let's be honest, you only need one lab test to know that the product is no pesticides, no mold, no heavy metals. Do we need to test it at every function, at every juncture of the supply chain? No, but that's usually what happens. And so under the guise of safety, consumers bear the brunt of that cost. And then guess what? They go back to the illicit market where the product's cheaper, it's not lab tested, but what we're trying to do under the guise of safety is we're driving people to the product that's probably dirty. How am I doing on time? What time is it? Okay. Metaverse, crypto, and NFTs are here. Companies are selling cannabis in the metaverse. I'm gonna burn through this one quickly. I just want you all to know that if you're building cannabis brands in Europe, this is where cannabis brands in America are going. Be ready. Job creation and tax revenue. The US cannabis industry created 450,000 jobs in 2021, last year. In comparison, the financial sector created 145,000 and construction did 165,000. Look at that. When you think about countries like Greece that have an ailing ag sector, imagine what the cultivation will do for those countries and the jobs that are going to be created in Europe. Tax revenue numbers are reported from sales. They're not really reported from all of the employment tax that comes through all those jobs. And the data never counts ancillary. That 450,000 jobs, those are in the cannabis industry. But think about the lawyers and the accountants and the bankers and the people that are selling tables and lights. That's also part of the cannabis industry, and those aren't even counted. This is a huge opportunity for governments. Data collection, which is why I had you guys give me your QR code. Now I know a bunch of you. I'm going to be able to communicate with you. People are buying everything now on their phones because of COVID. Online shopping exploded. Cannabis delivery exploded. And phones track behavior, location, and preferences. And believe me, everybody's buying. Every time you get that little terms of agreement and you agree to it, you are agreeing to share your data, and everybody's buying it. That's how you know that when you're searching for a mattress on Google, the next thing you know, when you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, mattresses are popping in front of you. They're buying this data. You should be collecting data. Build a data collection model in your business plan, because the data is the key to effective marketing, because you got to market to people on their phones. People are not going on their desktops. And when you think about what's coming with crypto, data collection is king. Maverick, innovator, aspirational. Those are the three words I think of when I think about all the people in this room. This is who the cannabis industry is. Our industry is full of people that are blazing this trail. I'm so proud of all of you. I'm proud to be part of this industry, because we're not going to shy away from what's hard. We are not going to allow fear to let us be pushed out. We walk into the face of this fear, and we're going to help end cannabis prohibition. And I'm going to leave you with this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. When I landed in Barcelona 2 days ago, it was International Women's Day, and I felt like this was apropos. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face and do the thing you think you cannot do. We can do this. Thank you.
Jamie Pearson, one more time. She's very soft-spoken. I'm a loud person. Jamie Pearson, I'm sure you can talk to her later.